It seems he doesn't care. Daddy wasn't there. Daddy didn't love me. Daddy wasn't there.
Hello everyone, this is a May 2021 Gimmick Puppet deck profile. I wanted to do a profile sooner, but one of these cards had been lost in the mail. This is an outdated XYZ era deck, which I consider to be stronger than decks like Batlin Boxer or Digital Bug, but not as strong as the likes of Teller Knight or Noble Knight, even before the new support. So this deck can put anywhere from, at worst, 0 monsters to 2 extra deck monsters on the first turn on the field. But what this deck does lack is interruption, which Teller Knight does have in the form of a counter trap. Noble Knight also has in the form of a hand trap. None of the Gimmick Puppet extra deck monsters have quick effects, so you might imagine how this deck might fare against modern decks. So 3 times Humpty Dumpty. Upon normal or special a Gimmick Puppet from the hand. This card being a level 4, sometimes you can actually end up with 1 level 4 and 1 level 8 on the field, which doesn't really help with the XYZ summoning, but you do have the option of the Link monster in those cases. It should be noted that you can special summon Humpty Dumpty from the hand with another copy of Humpty Dumpty. 3 times Terror Baby. So only upon normal special a Gimmick Puppet from the graveyard. This card being one of the reasons why Foolish Burial works in this deck. It seems to me that a lot of these classic decks do have one monster that specials from the hand and then one that specials from the graveyard too, but at least this deck has other cards, other monsters that special summon themselves as well, so you're not completely reliant on your normal summon. This card can banish itself from the graveyard during your turn to make your Gimmick Puppet monster effects spell speed 4 for the rest of the turn. That could come in handy for cards like Gigantes Doll, which is the rank 4, when you're trying to steal your opponent's monsters, which is one of the better extra deck plays in this deck. 3 times Dreary Doll, and 3 times Gearspring Spirit. So I am aware that each of these cards at 3 can brick, seeing that Dreary Doll only specials itself from the graveyard, and Gearspring Spirit requires you to have a graveyard of all machines. But I play each of these at 3 because they do work with Machine Duplication, and Machine Duplication is one of the best cards, one of the best plays in the whole deck. So 2 times Bisque Doll. Discard 1 Gimmick Puppet to special this card from your hand. This card not only specials itself, but it can put Dreary Doll in the graveyard. It can also build up a graveyard for Gearspring Spirit or Terror Baby, or of course cards like Monster Reborn. Again, another non-quick effect as a second effect. You can banish this card from the graveyard to prevent your opponent from targeting your Gimmick Puppets with effects this turn. 2 times Magnet Doll. If your opponent controls a monster and all of your monsters are Gimmick Puppets, you can special this card from the hand. This card and Condolence Puppet are reasons why it may be better to go second, and it does help to have that 6th card in your hand at the start of the duel, but of course at that point you'll have to deal with your opponent's board. 1 times Egghead. So this card requires you to discard a Gimmick Puppet monster to use its effect, which again can build up your graveyard, but its effect allows itself to be level 8 for the turn. So seeing that the strongest monsters in the extra deck are rank 8s, it could be good to have 1 normal summon in the deck that is a level 8. And 3 times Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. So this is the go-to inclusion in any older deck to vamp it up as much as you can. Spells, 3 times Trade-In. Allure of Darkness actually would work in this deck as well, but I feel that Trade-In is slightly better in this deck because instead of banishing the monster from your hand, you discard it, which is better for all the reasons that I already said, to put monsters in the graveyard. 3 times Machine Duplication. This is the best play that you can make in this entire main deck. If you're lucky, you can put a Dreary Doll on the field early on without having the other copies of it in your hand. You can get 2 more Dreary Dolls, 2 more bodies on the field. Unfortunately, Dreary Doll can only be used for a Gimmick Puppet monster. Sometimes though, if you're extremely lucky, you will have yet another copy of Machine Duplication to be used on your Gearspring Spirit in the same turn, which you can use to go into something like Hope Harbinger or Dingirsu, and those 2 extra deck monsters are pretty strong, some of the strongest in the whole deck. 2 times rank up magic Numeron Force. So rank up your rank 8 into a rank 9, a number C rank 9. The rank 9s are okay, but they are still slightly better than the rank 8s. This card is of course situational because you actually have to control a rank 8 to use it, but with Puppet Parade, the trap, which does special from the deck, you can not only build up a board, but also set this card directly from the deck. This card also does negate all face-up cards on the field after the summon, the rank up. 2 times Desires, so you do need to special summon, so Duality wouldn't work. The extra deck is pretty important, so the pot cards that banish from the extra deck probably wouldn't work. Desires is most probably the best fit in this deck for a pot card. 2 times Limit of Removal, so this is the classic OTK card for machine decks, perfect fit in this deck. 1 times Junk Puppet, I was actually running this card at 2, but it is basically a worse Monster Reborn, but it is an additional copy of Monster Reborn in this deck. 1 times Condolence Puppet, so this card is a good reason to go second because hopefully the opponent will have monsters special summoned from the extra deck, and then it allows you to dump Gimmick Puppets equal to their extra deck monsters on the field +1. So whether it's to pull off special summons from the graveyard or to use the monster's banish effects, it is important in this deck to have a built-up graveyard. This spell can also banish itself to protect your machine XYZs from destruction, which does help sometimes because none of the Gimmick Puppet XYZs, like I said, they don't have quick effects, but they don't have protection either. 1 times Perform Puppet, this card can be very useful also because if you have a level 8 in your graveyard, you can make all your level 4s on the field become level 8 to help go into the stronger extra deck monsters, which are pretty much all rank 8s. Hopefully you can do that more than once too because this card is continuous. Also, if your Gimmick Puppet is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can resurrect a banished Gimmick Puppet. So Terror Baby, Bisque Doll, or whatever you banished for Dreary Doll could also all be possible targets in the banish pile for Perform Puppet. 1 times Quick Chaos. So this is the quick rank up spell to go into number C rank 9s. If it weren't for Puppet Parade, I would probably run 2 of these and 1 Numeron Force, but like I said, you can set that Numeron Force from the deck with the trap. 1 Foolish Burial, so this is just to build up a graveyard. Lots of graveyard synergy, graveyard effects in this deck. 1 Monster Reborn for the last spell. This is just another way to revamp older decks that need help putting more monsters on the field. And last 2 cards in the main deck are Puppet Parade, so special summon Gimmick Puppets from the deck up to the difference between the number of monsters that your opponent controls over how many you control. Using this deck against modern decks, it probably will happen pretty quick that your opponent has more monsters than you, so if you do manage to activate and resolve this card, you will have maybe a slightly better shot at staying in the game. And like I said, you can set that rank up spell from the deck also. But this card does lock you into Gimmick Puppets for the turn, so you won't be able to go into cards like Hope Harbinger or Dingirsu, which, as I probably mentioned, are the better cards in the extra deck. So for the extra deck, 2 Chimera Doll. So this card lets you have, like I said, 2 different level monsters on the field and still have an available extra deck play. Though it does lock you into machine XYZs, which really isn't a problem except for Hope Harbinger. You can either add or dump a Gimmick Puppet monster, and then if you only control Gimmick Puppets, you can special summon 1 from the hand as well. While this card does help the deck out, and it is the cool new support for Gimmick Puppets, this Gimmick Puppet deck, it'll still have trouble with modern decks. Honestly, this card isn't enough to keep this deck as competitive as it wants to be, but it is nice to see older decks getting new support. Nightmare Phoenix, Nightmare Unicorn. I appreciate that these cards are about $1 a piece now. Very cool because they are just good all-around generic monsters. XYZ's 2 Gigantes Doll, the only rank 4. So this card and a lot of the XYZs here are examples of cards that, if they had quick effects, could actually be pretty good. This card detaches its materials to take control of 2 opponent's monsters, but you can't summon anything but Gimmick Puppets nor attack with anything but XYZs for the rest of the turn. You can also tribute this card to make your monsters become level 8. But this card, being a rank 4, lets you summon something like Humpty Dumpty, which then specials something like Terror Baby, and then you still have a way to ultimately summon a rank 8 that turn because they become level 8. So use those 2 monsters for this card, steal your opponent's monsters, turn them level 8, go into a rank 8. 2 Gimmick Puppet of String. So on your turn, you can place a string counter on each monster on the field except itself. And then during your opponent's next end phase, you destroy the monsters with string counters and then do some burn damage too. The problem with this card alone is that your opponent does have an entire turn to use their monsters as material, the ones with counters, before they're destroyed. 2 Gimmick Puppet of Dark Strings. So hopefully you will be able to rank up into this card quickly after summoning the other Gimmick Puppet of Strings, the rank 8, and then more hastily destroy the monsters with string counters. Again, do some burn damage and also draw 1 card. 1 Giant Grinder. So this card does targeting destruction of a special summoned monster. Of course, could be better, but it is another Gimmick Puppet option for a rank 8. And it only does burn damage if the destroyed monster is an XYZ monster. 1 Giant Hunter. So this card targets and destroys as well, but any card your opponent controls, not just a monster. And again, none of these effects are quick, so you might be starting to see why this deck might have some difficulty nowadays. 1 times Leo for the last Gimmick Puppet XYZ. Not only does this card take 3 turns to achieve victory, but you also cannot attack when you do use this effect to put a counter on this card. So maybe back in the day you could stall for 3 turns, but nowadays it does go without saying that this card will be removed from the field before you can put 3 counters on it to win the game. And then we have a Dingirsu. So this card, being much newer than the Gimmick Puppet XYZs, is also a lot better. It protects all your cards from battle and card effect destruction, and upon summon, not just XYZ summon, it is a form of non-targeting, non-destruction removal. This card, needless to say, is meant for the Orcus deck, but it does happen to fit in pretty nicely with this deck because not only is it a rank 8, but it does have some machine synergy as well. And then finally, Hope Harbinger. So another strong generic rank 8 that negates spell cards or effects as a quick effect. So already you can probably see why Hope Harbinger and Dingirsu are the best extra deck monsters here, but Hope Harbinger also protects your something like a Gigantes Doll, which does have 0 attack from battle, by switching the target to Hope Harbinger. And again, this card, it does also have synergy with XYZs in general by boosting an XYZ monster's attack. And before I end the video, I'd just like to show this card, XYZ Import. So this could be included in the deck at 1 or maybe 2 because it is niche. You have to control an XYZ monster for it to be useful, but it is non-destruction removal in this deck, and the whole deck is XYZs. So thanks for watching. See you later.
When I was first baptized, when I was criticized, when I was ostracized, when I was jazzercised, taking kidney pies, when I was modernized, when I was circumcised.